Good evening. See how quick that worked, Yocheved? Hi, everyone. My name is Nechami Rabin. I'm a cousin to Dini and Avremi, Levy, Yocheved, Yehuda, and I'm very honored to be here tonight. Last week was my daughter's 12th birthday. I was sort of hoping for like a gasp that I'm old enough to have a 12-year-old. But her birthday fell out on Tesva of Kislev, and the Hayom Yom of that day talks about Avos Yisrael. In that Hayom Yom, it is told that the Alter Rebbe told his son, the Mittel Rebbe, that grandfather, they were referring to the Baal Shem Tov, said that everyone needs to have Mesiras Nefesh for Avos Yisrael, even for someone whom they've never met. When this project came to light and nominations started to come in, a theme that I noticed from many of the people submitting their stories was that they felt that they were alone, they didn't have a lot of family where they were, or they didn't have a lot of support, or for whatever reason, they didn't feel connected. And this person, this teacher, this friend, whoever it was, came into their life and made a tremendous impact, whether they had known them from before or not. And I thought that it was such a special time of year to have this event and have this concept. There are three main characteristics of Yidden, and we are Baishanim, bashful, working on that one. We're also called Rachmanim, that we are merciful, and Gaimle Chasadim, that we do good deeds. And I thought it was pretty tremendous that of our three main characteristics, two of them are about kindness. Hashem made us specifically this way because of how important kindness is, how integral it is to just reach out to other people, share the love that we have, let them know that they're connected, let them know that they're important. I think it's a beautiful thing that we're here tonight to celebrate kindness, and I'm honored to call up Mr. Eli Nash to get this going. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight we are here to celebrate the moments and the people which make us. Oftentimes, I guess it's become somewhat popular to demonize, attack, and hate on some of the moments and people which break us. So tonight I guess we'll do things a little bit different. Not only as an opportunity to celebrate those moments and people, but also as a way to acknowledge for ourselves and to others that the moments and people which make us are more powerful than the moments and people which break us. I'll repeat that again. The moments and people which make us are more powerful than the moments and people which break us. This is my kindness story. I suppose my yeshiva situation, experience, was not much different than most people's. So I'm sharing a story, but I also believe that many others experience something similar. So I'll take you back to when I was about 17 or 18 years old in yeshiva. They don't teach you kind of respect anymore. It's good training for me. Rosh Lo prepared me for exactly how to handle this, don't worry. I'm not thrown off at all. So when I hear the word kindness, I also hear the word belonging. Kindness is a big word. I think that if most of us look at our lives at some of the most destructive and painful decisions we made, it was often a bad attempt to find or seek belonging. So when I thought about kindness and who I would nominate for the Kindness Award, I thought about someone who gave me that sense of belonging. When I was 17 or 18, yeshiva during that period of time. I went to yeshiva in Montreal, and the yeshiva had a rule that at the end of the year, if you chose to go to a day camp, then you couldn't come back the next year. I wasn't planning on coming back the next year, so I went to a day camp, and I started a new school the following year. When I got to the new school, it became apparent pretty quickly that the Rosh Yeshiva was not one of my biggest fans. He called me in a few times to talk about the way I dressed, the way I carried myself, a number of other things. And I guess I wasn't very surprised when Tishrei of that year, he gave me a call. And although I'm saying this story, it's not to attack him in any way, because I have no doubt, this guy's a good guy, and I have no doubt that he'd be nominated by other people for their kindness award. But I wasn't surprised when I got a call from him letting me know that after Tishrei, he would prefer if I found a different yeshiva. So naturally, I pushed back, and I said, I don't really have anywhere to go, and I realized that I wasn't the most Chassidish Bacher, but I saw how my friends struggled, the ones who left yeshiva. I saw the challenges they had, and I certainly didn't want to go down that path. I wanted to stay in yeshiva, and I told him, I challenged him. I said, I think you have a responsibility. You accepted me into yeshiva. So he said, I don't have a responsibility for you. I consider you a mekach tos. A mekach tos is it's a decision, it's a purchase, it's an acquisition that was based on a misrepresentation. He said, had I known who you were, I wouldn't have accepted you, and I'm not responsible for you. The next day, I called Rabbi Mordechai Wenger from Montreal Yeshiva, and it was this interaction that leads me to nominate him, but I should say that it wasn't the interaction itself, because the interaction doesn't happen in a vacuum. It was based on being around him for a year and being in yeshiva for a year that I developed a sense of trust, and I knew it was a safe call. So I called him, and I explained that I'd gone to a new yeshiva, and they asked me not to come back, but I'd still like to be in yeshiva. So he said to me, listen, it's going to be hard to get you back into Montreal, because for a number of reasons, but also because of the fact that I didn't follow the rules in between the school years. I wasn't meant to go to a day camp. He said, it doesn't look great. You break the rules, you get kicked out of another school, and you come back. He said, but that being said, I guarantee you'll be in a school. He says, what I'm going to ask you to do is apply to these 3 schools, and if none of them accept you, then I guarantee you have a place here, even if my job is. Like, if I have to put myself and guarantee you're here, you have a place. And I didn't end up going back to the school, but the sense of belonging that I would not have felt if it was just a mekach tos comment, he gave that back to me. I still belonged. There was a place for me. Okay, so there was someone who had an authority over a little school who told me I didn't belong in that school, but there was someone else who was able to tell me, hey, you do belong. And that's why I say that the moments and people which make us are much more powerful than the moments and people which break us. And I think in a lot of ways, when I think about what inspired me to this event, I thought about Rabbi Wenger, and I thought about the impact he had on my life, and that those teachers and those moments should be celebrated. And I'm sure that there are many more. And I thank everyone who nominated for this event. I thank the nominees. Celebrate the teachers, moment makers. Thank you, Jocheved. Sometimes when you have an idea, Jocheved side off, sometimes when you have an idea, that the first call you make to someone is like, okay, how are you going to execute on this? So I had the idea, but Yocheved had the vision, so thank you for that. I'm not going to go through a long list of thanking everyone else, but it has been a pleasure to get to know the Gourarie family through this. I've been very inspired by your family. I was inspired even before I got to know you, based on the way you were talking on Facebook and your transparency and openness, but since getting to know you, appreciated that, and getting to know Yocheved Gourarie on TikTok as well. She seems pretty awesome. So I thank Joe Weingart, my partner, is in the crowd. So for the vision he had, because he introduced me to Avremi, ironically. And my wife is here. Nothing to say, I just like saying that. My wife is here. So congratulations to the teachers and everyone who won tonight, and I look forward to this being an annual event, and thank you to the Meaningful Life Center for hosting this and ensuring that this is something that stays on for years to come and in many communities around the world. I believe the individual after me speaking is Levy Levy Gerrari, Yocheved's brother. You guys hear me? Okay. Wow. Hello, everyone. This is a lovely event. I want to thank Ellie Nash, Yocheved Seidoff, the rest of the organizers, obviously my parents and the nominees, the winners, and all the friends and family that I see here. So I really appreciate everyone that's here tonight. Yeah. It's nice to focus on the positive, you know. You spend too much time on the internet, as apparently I do, according to some people. You tend to see only the negative, and it's nice to do an event like this, which we're really focusing on the positivity in the community. You know, a lot of the narrative about the Chabad yeshivas and the institutions focuses on the bad experiences. Sometimes that's louder, the experiences that people had. So it's really nice to be here tonight to highlight the good that's being done in the Crown Heights schools. So this award is about kindness, of course, but you know, it really starts with my family. You know, growing up in a house, we had open, large Shabbos meals, and we were exposed to kindness firsthand from our parents in the form of food, good conversation, a little bit of scotch. And as kids, we were part of that. We were expected to help, we were expected to serve food, and we were expected to fully participate. And I thank my parents for bringing me up in a house like that, where we were so open and accepting to all kinds of Shabbos guests from all walks of life. I think a few of them are here tonight, so thank you for that, yeah. I think that when I was writing this, the word that I wrote down the most was the word impact. You know, kindness has a far-lasting and far-reaching impact. In the last few years, my sister, who the award is named after, chose to do as much as she could to help other people who were suffering. She started a Telegram channel, which is, if you don't know, it's a place where you can ask anonymous questions, and she tried her best, really, to help everyone through that and through her Instagram stories. And over the past year, we've heard a lot of stories about the impact she had on people, some that she knew about and some that she even didn't know about. And one never really knows how important a small bit of kindness can mean to another person. Even something as small as sitting down next to someone who's having a bad day and just being there for them. So, as illustrated by the recipients of the awards tonight, the impact of kindness reaches far beyond what the giver could ever expect. So I want to also share a kindness story that happened to me. I don't know if I was allowed to nominate anybody, but this would have been who I would have nominated. I feel like I can speak with a little bit of authority on the Crown Heights boys' schools because I was in several of them myself at different times. And I left Lubavitch Shiva Crown Heights before 7th grade, and for good reason. You know, I loved most of my time there, and then it was time to move on to Darchim Menachem, which is another phenomenal school. When I left, I was afraid that I would lose touch with my friends in the Lubavitch Yeshiva. You know, 7th grade is a big year. You have the bar mitzvahs, there are the social events. You had to be invited, otherwise you felt left out. And I left when my whole class was about to have their bar mitzvahs. And a few months into the year, my mother was in the Lubavitch Yeshiva. She was dropping off or picking up my younger brother. And one of my old classmates ran over to her and said, "Can you please give this invitation to Levy for my bar mitzvah?" And when I got the invitation, I'll never forget this, and I've told him a few times, he had written the words on the invitation to my friend Levy Gerrari, and that really, really stuck with me. And thankfully, you know, I got a lot of invitations that year, and I have a lot of friends, and some of them are here, and thank you for being here. But that was the first one, and that was the one that broke the ice, and I'm forever grateful. So kindness, you know, it's the gift that keeps on giving, and I just encourage all of you to incorporate a bit more kindness into your life, and it can only lead to more good. So, you know, the most important thing I'd like to say is thank you. And with that, I'd like to call my father to speak.
Oops, wrong envelope. Oh. So as I was watching Ellie speak, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, the guy's such a natural. He doesn't have to have any notes. He can just speak off the cuff. And that's not the case in my case, so you'll forgive me if I have to refer to my notes. So thank you all for coming. And I want to say that it's truly an honor and privilege to be standing here today at the culmination of this vital, important campaign. I would like to thank all those that worked tirelessly on this project to make it happen in the beautiful way that it did. And I apologize if I'm missing anyone. So in no particular order, I would like to thank Gunny Goodman, Ryan Carter, Rashi Marcus, Sarah Zohar from Israel, who mazel tov to her and her family on the birth of a baby girl this past Shabbos. I'd like to thank Yocheved Saidoff, who was the daily manager behind this whole project, and she did an amazing job. I would like to thank Rabbi Simon Jacobson and the Meaningful Life Center, who is hosting this event. And on a personal level, Simon and Shandy have been more of a source of support and comfort than they'll ever know. I'd also like to thank Yossi and Mika Sofer of COL. I don't know if they're here. I'd also like to thank Mayor Kay, who was involved in some of the video production. I thank the schools for promoting this, everyone who participated, nominated, and sent in inspirational stories of kindness. I would like to thank my family, Dini, Levy, and Yehuda, for their love and encouragement as we travel this journey together. Freddie and Ellie Nash, Ruth and Joe Weingarten. All this was your idea. You threw your support, your sponsorship, your love behind this. It became a shared passion, and in truth, I really have no words to describe our immense gratitude to you for establishing this award and campaign. And just keep in mind that it's an idea that I know Yocheved would be immensely proud of. I'm certain she is smiling now, and this gives us tremendous comfort. On a personal level, through tragic circumstances, I got to know Ellie a little bit. And I have to say that, Ellie, you've been a rock for me this entire year. Ellie has kept me on the straight and narrow, encouraged me to avoid the negative, and to only emerge from all of this with positive messaging. And those that know me know that that's no small feat. So you did it. Thank you for enriching our lives in so many ways. I've learned a lot. Our paths most likely would never have crossed, and divinely, Yocheved made this happen. Thank you. Thank you. Dini joins me in giving you guys a bracha that together with Freddie, you should have continued blessings, much nachas from your little kinderlach and from each other, and together in the best of health, continue to have the strength to accomplish all the important work you are doing for humanity. Much love. So let's talk about kindness. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, accepted his Nesias, his leadership, on Yocheved, Tavshin Yud Aleph, 5711, 1951. At the first Farbrengen of Yocheved, he famously recited the Maimer Basi Lagani. In part, the Rebbe talks about the concept of Kol Shvin Chavivin, the significance of the number 7, perhaps in an apalik kind of way, referring to himself, who was the 7th Lubavitcher Rebbe. But explains that it's not just the luck of the draw, but rather a privilege and a responsibility that is precisely because we are special, that we are the 7th generation before Mashiach comes, that we have a special shlichus, a cause, a mission to fulfill. And this entire mimer was a call to arms, to the Hasidim, to bring down godliness into this physical world, asking every Yid to partner in this endeavor However, the Rebbe explained he cannot do this on his own, and he called on the Hasidim to participate. There are two things in this mimer that resonate with me. The first thing is that I believe this is the only mimer that the Rebbe ever said, and someone may correct me on this, that in the middle of the mimer, the Rebbe stops and says, perhaps we should take a little break and say l'chaim, which I don't know if that ever happened before when the Rebbe said a mimer. The second thing is that he concluded to bring out this point, to make this point drive home, he concluded by quoting a pasuk in Tehillim, which I believe I also said, I think the last time I saw this pasuk, by the way, was when I said my bar mitzvah mimer. Magid dvarav leYaakov, chakav mishpatav leYisrael. That the Eibishter says his commands to Yaakov and his statutes and rules to Yisrael. It doesn't say dvarim, chokim, or mishpatim, but rather it's not phrased as plural nouns, but rather expressed in the possessive form. Everything God asked us to do, he did himself. So like we said at the bar mitzvah mimer, he would put on tefillin. He asked us to put on tefillin, he'd put on tefillin in whatever way that's described, God himself. The Rebbe mentioned this pasuk to say that where we're tasking everybody to do all this mission to bring Mashiach, everything that he's asking the Hasidim to do, the Rabbeim are doing themselves. And then he goes on to cite many examples of what the Rabbeim did as an example to show that, look, the Rebbe did this, so the Hasidim should do the same thing. But the interesting thing here is the following, that what kind of demands does the Rebbe give us as an example? Not this chumrah, not this stringency, not that hidur, not any stringency or fundamentalist idea of any kind. No, rather acts of chesed and kindness. This topic of chesed and kindness in Avos Yisrael was the launch pad of his messaging. And he gives examples of each of the Rabbeim. I'm just going to go through these examples very quickly. He talks about the Alter Rebbe, who once interrupted his davening to go chop wood for a woman who had just given birth. The Mitter Rebbe, who showed Chassid how his inaction was physically affecting him, so he's so connected to him. The Tzemach Tzedek went out of his way to lend money to a very simple person in need. There's a story of the Rebbe Mayrash, who once traveled to a spar in some remote area to meet with a young man and to encourage him to do better. And the person returned home, became God-fearing and observant, a yid with an observant family. The same is told about the Rebbe Rashab, that he went on a journey to Moscow to annul an anti-Semitic decree, even though his older brother, the Razah, told him he doesn't have to go, I'll take care of it. But he said, no, he wanted to go himself to take care of this, to help his fellow Yidden. He went himself and he was successful. The Rebbe continues to say that there were many stories of how the Fidik Rebbe went out his way to help people and set his own comfort away, own spiritual comfort, own physical comfort. So these are all stories of chesed and kindness. But because the Rebbe is the one giving this mimer, there's no stories in this mimer that talks of the Rebbe's own kindness. And of course, there are thousands of stories that are told of the Rebbe's own kindness. But it came out a few years later that what had happened the night before he gave the mimer, that the telephone in the secretary's office at 770 started ringing, and Rabbi Moshe Grona was there, Al Vashalom, the brother of Rabbi Leibel Grona, Al Vashalom, and he heard the phone ringing, and he after many rings he decided he better answer it, and he picked up the phone, and on the other end was the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked Rabbi Moshe to come over to his house, his apartment then on New York Avenue. When he showed up at the apartment, he saw the Rebbe deeply engrossed in preparation, several Sfarim laid on his table. Let's remember, he's giving his inaugural address the very next day. He told Moshe Grona to make a call to a certain doctor and to let him know when he makes contact. when the doctor was reached, the Rebbe took the phone call. After the call, he told Reb Moshe, I'm going to leave now for a while. It later emerged that the Rebbe visited a patient in the hospital that night, the night before he told of the Maimon of Abbas Lagani. Hasidim later understood this, as this was the way that the Rebbe was inserting himself in an actual, practical way into the narrative and purpose of the Maimon's message, the foundational message of Ahavas Yisrael. We ought to pay attention to these nuggets of leadership. Yocheved, as most of you know, personified kindness to a fault. We knew about this when she was with us physically, and after her passing, many new stories came to light. And I wanted to share one example, told to us by a young lady who's now, I believe, 20 years old. She told us that when this young lady, was 5 years old in kindergarten, at home, the home that she came from, they ate and drank in a very healthy manner, and they didn't have any soft drinks. So what she did was, at the age of 5, she saw a friend of hers that had a can of Sprite, and she stole the can of Sprite. So when the teacher saw that this is what happened, she berated her in front of the whole class and kicked her out of class. And now you have this little 5-year-old girl sitting outside the room crying and bawling her eyes out. Down the hallway comes Yocheved, who was 9 at the time. She sat next to her, spoke to her, and comforted her. And this girl, who is now 20, told her how the story stayed with her to this day. This should be the mission of every parent, educator, and friend. We live in interesting times when it's the most complex environment to rear a healthy family. When it comes to chinuch and education, Hasidishkeit is important, Hiskashrus is important, to be scrupulous in observance is important, to learn Torah and Hasidus is important. But it is our responsibility that, first and foremost, to lead and parent by example. That foundationally, we must embrace the idea that kindness and chesed is to be the catalyst for all that follows. This is true on the macro level, and I believe more importantly on the micro level. Teacher to student, friend to friend, parent to child. A simple act, a kind word, a warm embrace, everything else will follow. Only by example can we transmit values and Torah morality. Perhaps if we practice this from a very early age, instill this from an early age, we can promote healthy living from the get-go. It gladdens my heart that through this campaign and effort, awareness on this topic has become more of a discussion. In conclusion, I just want to quote from something that someone showed me from Sefer Sichos from the Frierdiker Rebbe, quoting the Alter Rebbe. After the first time he had met the Mezritch Maggid, a student of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement. I'm going to read it in the original Yiddish, and then I'll paraphrase. Ikar Chassidus is Midas Tevis. Nit Askala Chachme, nit Havana Binne, nit Asagadas is Ikar Chassidus Chabad. The Ikar Chassidus Chabad is Midas Tevis. Maar begdei als zal zijn Midas Tevis, but daarvan hebben megen Segel. Aber das megen we Segel, zijn meer niet wie Zlib Midas Tevis. The Ikar is Midas Tevis, und Zlib dem haben gegeben megen. To paraphrase, the main objective of Chassidus is good deeds. Not Haskalah, which is grasping the genesis of an idea through Chachma, wisdom. Not Havana, understanding on a deeper level through Bina. Not Das, an even deeper level of understanding that connects to the heart and is a catalyst for action. But rather, a Chabad Chassid's objective is good deeds, kindness, positive connections. Intellect, analysis, academia, while important, is not an end unto itself, but rather a pathway, a modality, if you will, an instruction manual, as it were, to gain the tools so that we may be good and kind in spirit and kind in deed. Let's be wise, let's be mindful, let's be kind. Thank you all for coming. And with that, I'd like to hand that over to Yocheved Saidoff.
It's been a while since I've been on a podium. It's like riding a bike, right? Good evening. Wow, what a beautiful crowd. I'm honored to be here tonight to share in this momentous occasion of honoring Yocheved Gourarie, the Kindness Award, all the nominees, and the winners. I want to thank Ellie for reaching out to me that fateful day. It's good to work with you again on something so incredible and so meaningful. Thank Rabbi Simon Jacobson. I've been your student since I was 15 years old in Pittsburgh, and I heard you that fateful day. Honored to work with you and your team on this. And the Gourarie family, Avrami, Dini, Levy, Yehuda. Thank you for opening your home to me, literally. Your hearts, your family is beautiful, and it's my honor to have worked with you on this. If I were to ask you, what is your goal in life? How would you answer it? This is how Yocheved answered that question on her telenym. Her goal, as she stated, to love, be loved, and accept love. To feel satisfied and fulfilled and boundless. To be a positive presence in the lives of others and give back to those who have gotten me this far. In preparing for this campaign, I had the honor to speak to friends, family, teachers, classmates, principals of Yocheved, to get to know her better and understand her beating heart. One of the things that struck me the most in learning about Yocheved was not just that she was incredibly intelligent, brilliant, cutting sense of humor, ironic in many ways, and kind, but that she was kind without any agenda. She was kind in a way that was completely in tune to the needs of the recipient. It wasn't about her, what she wanted to accomplish, what she was masterminding, but how she was completely in tune to the person that she was seeing, the person that she loved. Her friend Adina Nummer said, "There were times that I needed a gift, and she surprised me with a perfect one. There are times where I needed to laugh, and she'd send me 300 memes. Yocheved just knew what people needed most at that moment and was able to be there for them, no questions asked." Her college classmate and friend Francesca said, "We had a catchphrase between us. What do you need from me right now? Do you need a solution? Do you need a hug?" Sometimes the answer is no answer, and she was okay with that too. No agenda, not trying to fix or solve. What could be possible for us in our own lives, in our relationships, with our partners, with our friends, with our children, with our parents, with our students, if we drop the agenda? If we were kind just for the sake of being kind, if we were attuned with the other person's needs, what could be possible? Yocheved and those people in her life knew was to be loved and accepted. Yocheved said it best. We are social creatures leaning on each other to survive and thrive, and more importantly, thrive. We need community, we need support, we need love and compassion and acceptance. We are here tonight to celebrate those moment makers, those childhood friends, those classmates, those mechanchim, who embody the kind of community that Yocheved longed for, who engender through acts of kindness a place where people are accepted, feel like they belong, loved unconditionally with no agenda. School is a pivotal time and place for all of us. So much happens in those formative years. And we are here to celebrate those people who realize the impact of those years and go out of their way to act in kindness. So before we call up those winners who are here with us tonight and celebrate them, I want to leave you with one last question. What is your legacy? Or as Yocheved posed it, do you want to be remembered in a certain way? And Yocheved on her telenym answered like this: I want to be remembered as a good person. Yes, Yocheved, you are remembered as such, and so much more. I'm going to call on Mrs. Gourarie now to read out the winning nominations and winners of the female categories. Yeah? Okay.
The first three are right here, so I'll start with them.
And then you'll go through the next one, okay?
And they can come up.
Yeah. You'll call them up, and then we'll get them the award. and then-
Hi, everyone. It's a beautiful crowd. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. I repeat the thank yous that Remy gave to all the people that were involved in this, Ellie and Frady, Joe and Ruth, to everyone that sent in their nominations, and to the wonderful people that are here, Yocheved, Meaningful Life. Don't want to miss anybody, but just the fact that everyone that's in this room supporting us and supporting this initiative means the world to us. And Yocheved, it's all for you. So I'll start with the nomination. This is a nomination that came in for a Mora, and this is how it reads. I'm not sure who wrote this, but I want to nominate Miss Hertzberg because she helped me. And listened to me when I was going through a dark time in my life. I asked her a question, which led to all types of discussions. She realized something was wrong. She cared. She was worried. She asked me what was wrong. Almost everybody in my grade who knew me before 8th grade realized I was not myself the whole year. My principals, my previous teachers, and my grade mates. When my principal told me that I didn't look happy and that she was disappointed that I kept skipping classes, to me it seemed that she didn't really care. I ended up getting suspended for a day because I was skipping almost all my classes. A lot of my friends distanced themselves from me because I wasn't happy and because it was too much for them. There were very few people who actually stayed friends with me and who were with me through thick and thin. I didn't care about anything. Frankly, I was depressed and down in the gutters. I was doing some things that weren't good for me, thinking that it would help. At this point, I didn't really expect people to care about what was going on with me. But when I asked Ms. Hertzberg about something, she was very worried and gave me advice, warning me away from it. We had plenty of discussions, her trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and me constantly being confused as to why she cared so much. I remember her telling me she had nightmares about me and what I asked her about. I eventually told her I'd given in and done it multiple times and was planning on continuing. She was my science teacher, and she explained the dangers to me multiple times. She never gave up on me, even when things were hopeless. She knew something had happened to me between 7th and 8th grade. She didn't try to squeeze it out of me like everyone else. And it wasn't like we had heart-to-heart conversations. I knew she was worried and that she cared about me and what happened to me. The fact that she cared and was not running away from me and my problems, I think that's what really ended up getting to me. Not the fake smiles, not that you're going to be okay or it's all from Hashem and Hashem only does good. She was simply there for me. A lot of times we had simple, normal conversations. She was frank and honest with me, and that's what I needed. She didn't give up on me. She still spoke to me. She still stopped to ask me how I was doing. And if need be, we would talk a little, even if she was in a rush to get to work. But she didn't run away. Yes, it took time for me to start down a path of recovery, but I got there. I wouldn't have gotten there without her. Obviously, there were other people who made a huge impact on my life, friends and family alike, but Ms. Hertzberg left an impact on me that no one else could have. I'm happier and healthier now, and Ms. Hertzberg played a big role in that. I am forever grateful. Ms. Malki Hertzberg.
And I hope to always, just actually deserve this one day. And, I'm too proud to be just a good person to remember that.
Do you want to share anything?
It's okay.
No? Okay. This is for a childhood friend. My friend Mali Nu, now Lapkowski, has been one of the most unconditionally loving, caring, and supportive people I have been honored to know. There's all the usual friendship stuff. She's respectful, playful, fun, kind, caring, remembered birthdays and big life events, always cheering me on and listening to me and laughing along. But there are things that go beyond normal friendship and that show a level of care and love that surpass the usual. There was the time when Molly, worried about my unhealthy eating habits, showed up in school with the tub of homemade healthy version of Nutella spread because she knew that's what I had for lunch and wanted to show me there were healthy alternatives to my favorite favorite sugar-laden treats. She accidentally made it with chestnuts, and it took us a while to figure out why it had a funky flavor, but hey, at least we got a laugh. She taught me how to draw and channel my inner artist, how to tap into my inner musical air and let my creative side roam free. An accomplished pianist and artist, Molly always encouraged me to tap into my natural talents and leave my shyness and insecurity at the door. She's always been so much more talented than me, but treated me like an equal, taking the time to give serious, thoughtful feedback and constructive criticism to help improve my technique, even though she was always light years ahead. Whatever I need her for, Molly is there, and she sees every job through the end, including the annoying bits. She perseveres even when things get hard and boring. When we ran our school newspaper together, Molly taught me to discipline, perseverance, and attention to detail. When I announced something good enough, arguing that no one would care about the little details, Molly patiently showed me why excellence matters. Ever curious and ever fascinated by the life swirling around her, she constantly invited me to cultural events across the city, teaching me about music, art, and humanity. If I had a question and she didn't know the answer, she would look it up and come back to me to have a thoughtful discussion about the topic at hand, and we'd learn about it together. Later on in high school, when I was going through a hard time with some things, Molly would pick me up in her parents' car, take me to the waterfront, and we'd sit and talk for hours over ice cream, with me doing much of the talking. Molly is the most attentive listener, while Molly offered insight and wisdom beyond her years. Molly's always been a doer, not a talker, and I would always randomly discover that she had volunteered, helped, assisted, or gotten involved in some mitzvah or other without mentioning it to anyone. So many times she would drive out of her way, walk out of her way, or take initiative to do little or big things to help me out. Her thoughtfulness, kindness, and caring make her stand out. I could go on, but her encouragement, support, wisdom, and caring, generous nature, among so many other wonderful things, have impacted my life in so many ways. One example of how Molly's kindness changed my life. I was about 20 years old and making a huge life-changing decision that I knew wouldn't be accepted by my community, deciding to openly live a not religious lifestyle so I could live in alignment with my personal beliefs. I was so afraid. I thought I'd be alienated by my friends and family and excluded, shamed, or thought less of. I was so terribly afraid of losing my community, my family, my friends, their respect, their care, their consideration. I was bewildered, sad, confused, and unsure. Late one night, as Molly and I discussed the state of my life, and I told her what I wanted, she asked me what was holding me back. With no small amount of trepidation, I told her how I felt and how afraid I was. I was scared it would signal the end of our friendship. I so vividly recall Molly looking at me in disbelief, like I was the biggest idiot. She laughed at me as she rolled her eyes. Of course I would never look at you differently, and none of your friends would. Your family and friends who love you won't suddenly dislike you because of your life choices, and if they do, they never really loved you to begin with. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not religious, or an alien from outer space will love you no matter what. And with that, she looked back to the road and continued driving, unaware that this was the first time in my life that I had experienced this unconditional love and acceptance. It was the first time someone had told me that I could choose my own life, and now, no matter what my choices, they would accept me as I am. I felt this huge sense of relief, like a massive weight had been lifted from my soul. I started crying and telling Molly how much that meant to me. Her response was simple. Of course, she said. Did you expect anything else? It was so simple to her, so obvious. These lifestyle choices didn't make a difference. She loved me for who I was, and me choosing to live differently didn't change that. She loved me, not for my religious status, and that was that. There was never a question in her mind, and she was shocked that there was a question in mine. In the years since, this memory has always stayed with me. It was my first memory of unconditional acceptance, my first step toward openly accepting my own identity with pride and confidence. It makes sense, I later mused, that the friend who always encouraged me, always told me I had so much to offer, and that I should be more confident about who I am, would be the first one to support and encourage me to embrace my identity and journey as an adult. Molly? Is Molly here? You coming up? You coming up or sir?
Thank you.
Okay. Just come up for 1 second, sorry. Apparently we need...
Thank you.
Now we have a classmate. Now, does her friend that nominated her want to read it? Or should I read it? You could? Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you. Shayna is a very nice girl with a big heart. She always sees the good in everything and everyone around her. She's pure kindness. And she's my best friend.
Thank you.
Remy will come up and read the men's, but I just want to clarify that these awards are not just recognizing their incredible kindness, but due to the generosity of the sponsors, Ellie and Frida Nash, Joe and Ruth Weingarten. The amounts are for teachers, $15,000. For childhood friends, $5,000. And for classmates, $500. Meaningful contributions to teachers who should be paid more.
Okay, this is the first award for teacher. The nominator writes, Levy is the beating heart of Ache. There is no Ache without Levy. He sacrifices without hesitation to help the Bachrim. He lives for us. We are his life. That's why I believe he should be this year's Yocheved Gourarie Kindness Award winner. He literally gives his all to his students. I think he is hands down the most dedicated teacher I have ever seen, Rabbi Levy Gerrari.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll start by thanking my students for making one heck of a sturm on Instagram. But thank you to all of you, for every one of you being here, and for everybody who took part in this. I think that it's a tremendous project. It's just amazing what we can do going forward from here. Each one of us coming out of this room saying, I'm going to help people more than I ever thought I was able to. I'm going to dedicate myself a little bit more. Don't worry, I'll still come home at night. But I'm going to, look out for that one person. Even, I don't know, for me, I don't want to take too long, but there were people who, in my life, it was just simple, someone random. I remember this as a kid. I would daven with my father sometimes in the morning in Frischel, and then I had to walk to Masifta on Troy, and it was pouring rain, and I was just getting soaked, and some guy just gave me an umbrella. And then years later, I was walking on Kingston in the morning with an umbrella, and there was this girl walking, and she was crying in the rain. I just said, here, take the umbrella. I went into the store, bought a new one. And to me, I think these small acts, I never saw her again. I don't know who she is, I never saw the guy who gave me the umbrella. But little things like that, how we can help people. You mentioned the first Farbrengen of the Rebbe. In that Farbrengen, the Rebbe says that there are 3 types of love. It's Avas HaTorah, Avas Hashem, and Avas Yisrael. Love of Torah, love of God, and love of a fellow Jew. And if one has Avas HaTorah and Avas Hashem, but does not have Avas Yisrael, then it's a raya, it's a proof that he's lacking in his Avas HaTorah and Avas Hashem. It's not fully real. But if one has Avas Yisrael, he will eventually come to Avas HaTorah and Avas Hashem. And what I think the message is, it's pretty simple. It's right there, but Avas Yisrael and kindness is really about putting yourself aside and really hearing the other person, really worrying about the other person. And when we do that, eventually, then everything falls into place. So thank you again. I really appreciate this. To everyone who was a part of it. I don't even know all the details. Thank you to my students. Thank you to the staff who work with me. And thank you to the Rebbe, who really, he keeps me going. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to childhood friend. The nominator writes, Zalmi al Vashalom was easy to be friends with, but more than that, he seeked you out to be his friends. I went to a non-Lubavitch school for my elementary years. Being the only Lubavitcher in my class, I never quite fit in and was always picked on. However, when I came to a Lubavitcher camp thinking I would fit right in, there was something lacking there too, as I wasn't soaked in the warmth and nuances of Chassidish Yedias, the Rebbe Sichos, fitting for an elementary levels child. And I was missing the lingo. So I was not here nor there. Zalmi, who as everyone knew him, can attest to, bore no prejudice to anyone. On the contrary. He saw everyone as important, human, and unique, who can contribute something to the world that he cannot. He instantly befriended me and considered me a friend until his last day. The fact that I wasn't as versed in the Hasidic Inyanim like my Lubavitch boys our age didn't seem to matter to him. On the contrary, he saw it was an opportunity to help him to teach. We used to speak for hours. He would forbrain with me and share things he knew and learned. I remember vividly meeting him in 770 once, before my bar mitzvah, and he was so excited to see me because he wanted to show me a recent letter he read from the Rebbe in one of the Hosafos in the back of the Kodesh Sichos. His excitement got me excited, and the fact that he felt he could share it with me helped me feel that I can too enjoy reading a letter from the Rebbe or learning from a sikha. That it's not beyond my reach just because I didn't have the same chinuch. He made me feel as an equal and made me see that I too can connect with Hasidus, and that it's not foreign, and that I'm just as Hasidish and worthy as anyone else, even if I don't possess the years of baked in Hasidic education. What's this word, baked? I don't get it. And that I can achieve whatever I'm missing. I wasn't an outsider when I was with him, when the typical Kranite's boy generalizing would make you feel intimidated and unworthy because you didn't know the significance of Yubei Tammuz or Chaf Av. Zami saw things differently. Zami saw you as a person, as a Bavitcher, as a Chassid, because that is your etzem. He felt your etzem. The fact that you couldn't rattle off the Shalsheles Hayichus of the Rabbeim didn't define who you are. Being around him made me feel that I belonged. Being around him made me feel worthy. Being around him meant that I can actually be someone, even if I may have lacked the background. He was the first true Lubavitch friend, and perhaps my first true friend. My first true friend. Period. I miss him. I miss those long private Farbrengens. I miss those long discussions. I miss learning those nuances from him in such a non-judgmental way. I miss him. It must be said that his Emerskkeit, his Chassidishkeit, his Frumkeit and kindness comes from his parents. I've spent many hours speaking with his father, Rabbi Barris, and I see how the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Rabbi Barris definitely earned the zchus to have a son with such a special neshama. I am not sure if he will be considered posthumously, and that his family might receive this award on his behalf. Nevertheless, I still feel his story, my story, is important to share so others can learn from him. His selflessness and humility helped build up another Chassid, and by extension, future generations of Chassidim and Mekusharim. If sharing this will help inspire even one Yid to care more for another Yid without prejudice, then this write-up was worth it. Also, I would like his family to know what impact he's made even as a young boy of 9 years old. They have lots to be proud of. Yehei Zichri Baruch. May his memory be a blessing. Accepting on behalf of Rabbi Chaim Shnei Zalman Beres Al Vashalom is his family. I believe his father is here. Pose. Take a picture. Want to say a few words? Yes.
On behalf of his wife, Nechamedina, myself, my wife, his own children, his siblings, definitely feel very proud of him. He was always a very special neshama. And interesting that whoever wrote this had him when he was still a bocher. As a matter of fact, when he became a malamed, he affected even much more. Could you imagine in Alatayra? He was there for 2 years. The respect they gave him, everyone says Alatayra, big deal, right? But when, when he walked in, they knew that he felt for them. He would ask them what they liked to eat, invite them for Shabbos, and give them their menu, what they wanted. The Chamedina had to actually make all these things, so she really gets part of this as well. And I just want to bring out one very important thing. How is it possible that you meet someone and you can disregard all the outside trappings? You know, he looks like this, he acts like this guy's a nerd, this guy's a square, why should I be his friend? We have to remember one thing. Who are we really? Are we just the outside trapping of the body, or are we the neshama? And if we're the neshama, how do you get to it? Now, I always give an example. Everyone knows in shul there's the candy man. Candyman is that friendly guy who's always joyful. He likes to give out the candies. He enjoys talking to the kids, and he says, okay, pick what color you want. Don't forget to make a bracha, throw out the wrapper, be very, very friendly. Now imagine this person, Rahman al-Islam, goes into an accident. He's in the hospital a couple of weeks, comes back, but his mind was affected. Instead of being the nice, jovial, patient fellow, now he's very abrupt. What do you want? You want this color? I don't have. Just take this and get out of here. How would we treat that person and remember him as the candy man? We definitely say it was an accident. That's not him talking. It's someone else. The real him is somewhere inside. And I'm going to treat him the way I did the first time. By us, it's the same thing. We all are neshama tahirahi. Ata varasa, ata yitzarta, and the fact it starts coming down in more accidents. Gets covered up. But we know that the real person is the neshama. So when you see the outside, and it's not acting that way, you know that you have to just dig deeper. And then you can be non-judgmental. You can take him as he is, no matter what. And those are the type of people that we can emulate by just knowing, look at the person, he's a neshama. He's just as important as all of us. And he's worth the time to give him that courage to also know that he's a neshama and he's not just what he fails or something like that. He can accomplish whatever he wants because we have the power. May the Eibishter help already that it should be the time. This is a beautiful thing. The Rebbe said, through goodness and kindness, that's where we're going to bring Mashiach. You can't do better than this. This is an actual Mashiach project. And the Eibishter should help. It should be that we should all be able to be together with all the ones who think they're in a better place. This is the place to be. The Eibishter should bring Mashiach now. Amen, and thank you very much.
At this point, I'd like to call up Schneer, who wrote the following nomination. Schneer. You wrote this, buddy. Read it out.
All right. I would like to nominate my classmate Peretz. When we moved to Crown Heights, I started a new yeshiva. Peretz was the first person I talked to, me and welcomed me. From that day on, he became my best friend, forever my friend. Yeah.
At this point, we're calling up Peretz Shmuel Botvinnikov to accept the Classmate Award. Bring your friend in, Come. Smile for the camera, boys. Just want to say anything?
Sure.
This is yours, first of all.
Oh, appreciate
If you want to say anything, go.
it. All right, I'll make it quick. Okay. Right. So I was pre-warned that I might be saying something. I wasn't really sure what, but I think I got kind of the whole theme. Actually, it's really convenient. Recently in yeshiva, they had us review over Perek Lamed Beis of Tanya, which refers literally just the whole thing's about Ahavas Yisrael, and I thought that was really convenient. I just learned it and just, And a quote that I thought was interesting, I'm kind of just going to say the quote and just leave it off on that, was that the entire source of the Torah is, you want to treat your fellow Jew as you would want to be treated. And he said that everything else in the Torah is nothing but commentary. And I thought that was a really powerful quote that I want to share with you guys. That's it.
Thank you, Peretz. And to close out the evening, I'd like to invite our esteemed leader, Rabbi Simon Jacobson of the Meaningful Life Center, to close things out with words of encouragement.
When I was first approached about this award by Avremi and Dini and Eli, it struck me. You know, we live in a world where there are many award ceremonies, very famous ones, like Academy Awards. If you don't know what it is, feel blessed. I'm not going to go through the others, Tony Awards, and I didn't learn that in yeshiva, but I did pick it up here and there. And it struck me was that you have millions and millions of people watching these awards. And when you think about it, even though I'm sure it's honoring some form of excellence, but it's completely superficial. And you can even say nonsense. And when's the last time you heard, this should be broadcast all over the world with billions of people watching. So why is it that we live in such a world where the things that really matter are either overlooked, underappreciated, and so many things that really don't matter make so much noise? So I'm not going to go into analyzing this. We have all kinds of ways of explaining it. But I did feel both humbled and honored to be part of something which really I have nothing to do with, to be honest. I just said yes because I thought, hey, what an honor. Especially Eli made it clear I don't have to do anything about it. So how often do you get honor without any effort? But on a serious note, there's the story in the Torah, one of the most moving episodes, that most people even overlook when they read it. It's when Yocheved, the mother of the great Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, so she's hiding her son because of the decree that Pharaoh would kill all the newborn boys, males. So she took a basket and she waterproofed it and put the little boy on the river Nile. But then there's that one verse, when you read it closely and slowly, and you'll see the power of an evening like this, where Yocheved sends her little daughter, Miriam, the older sister of Moshe Rabbeinu, to just stand and watch. That's all. No big effort, just to stand and watch the little boy. Maybe Yocheved knew she was a prophetess, what Moshe Rabbeinu would turn out to be, but it's irrelevant. There were no camera crews, and there were no award ceremonies. But the Torah made sure to remember forever and ever, and the Torah, you should know, the Bible is the best-selling book, better, even more selling than all the Academy Awards. And the little story of the young girl Miriam watching her brother, and just that act of generosity, unsung, no one ever knew, she would not know that this would be documented. But when you think about it, that is where the greatest things in life happen. All of us are blessed with parents, hopefully parents that nurtured us. We'll assume that for now. And the greatest moments are the ones that you don't remember and I don't remember. As soon as you emerge in this world and your mother cradles you and nurses you and your father does the same, who notices it? Who's taking pictures? Who's rewarding it? But this is what shapes lives. And today we know when children are deprived of that, the devastation that it creates. You see, healthy things don't feel like anything. If someone asks you, what does it feel like to be healthy? If you say and describe the feeling, you probably need a doctor. Because health is not supposed to feel like something. You don't feel. if you feel your heart thumping or you feel other things happening, you feel your blood rushing through your veins, there's an issue going on. So health is seamless, it's invisible. It's only when we don't have it. You see, God forbid, someone struggling to breathe. You suddenly realize, wow, what a miracle. You realize, a person breathes 15, 18 times a minute. Who even notices? This is miracles. And that's why David HaMelech, King David, at the end of the book of Psalms, he makes it very clear. The last statement, Kol HaNeshama Tahal Ka. Every soul praises God. Well, what does that mean? Says the Medrash that the word soul also is to be read like neshima, breath. Soul and breath are the same word. It's God's breath. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. That every breath you take is a miracle. But again, who notices that? So when we're here together and we're honoring people who saved one person's life, none of us would have even noticed. This is where reality is shaped. This is what creates eternity. And all the big fanfare and fireworks makes a lot of noise at the moment, but it doesn't last. These are lasting legacies that are forever and ever. I remember it was in 1974. Tavshin Lamed Hey. It was around these weeks, Pasha Vayetze. Now, I knew the story from the other end, but I'll tell it from the beginning. That we heard later what behind the scenes. In one of the yeshivas in this community, and there were less yeshivas then, a mother who was a suffering mother, her son was being bullied in the yeshiva. And she called the faculty, she called the teachers, she tried everything. Either she was dismissed, something the matter with her, whatever it is, was not addressed. And her son was really hurting. A mother feels the pain of a son, of a child. So she, in her innocence, decided she's going to write a letter to the Rebbe, just describing just her anguish, that she doesn't know what to do. Well, what did the Rebbe do? He told Rabbi Chadakov, his chief of staff, his secretary, he said, call the yeshiva, find out which class this is, and who the teacher is and who the principal is, and tell them that they have 24 hours to correct the situation, and if not, I myself, the Rebbe himself, will come to the yeshiva to do it himself. So you can imagine that's not what exactly they wanted. So something happened. I don't know the details, but a stop. The bullying came to a stop. But listen to the extent of how this goes. That year, Shabbos, Vayetze, was Yud Kislev, the 10th of Kislev, which is a time when the Rebbe would usually have a Farbrengen, because it's the Geula, Chag HaGeula of the Mittler Rebbe, 9 days before Yutes Kislev. So everybody expected a Farbrengen. Well, there was no Farbrengen. And later it was discovered why. Why was there no Farbrengen? Because that day was the birthday of this boy on Shabbos. And the Rebbe did not want people to go to the Farbrengen and therefore deprive this boy from having a proper birthday party. So had he had a Farbrengen, some people would just not attend. To that extent that the Rebbe decided he's not going to Farbrengen. Now the Rebbe is speaking to the world. He has something to say to the world. I'm sure everyone would forgive the Rebbe had a Farbrengen on that Shabbos. But this is the extent. And there's no question setting an example. These are the few stories we know. Now, I don't want to talk about horror stories here because we are celebrating and honoring kindness. But as I said, sometimes the only way to appreciate kindness is when you see the opposite. So I'll just share something without the full details. So there was a young boy in this community of a family who lost their mother at a young age. So in addition to, in general, having compassion for any child, especially a yosem, an orphan, well, his teacher, either simply being insensitive or oblivious or I don't know what, let's say ignorant. One day, this boy was misbehaving in class. So the teacher says to him, listen, I'm throwing you out of the school now. Go home and bring back a note from your mother. Now, a child is an innocent child. The child doesn't know, so the boy left the classroom. What did he do? His mother is not home, at least physically. So he hid in the garbage can. Little boy, he hid in the garbage can. He was afraid because he was thrown out of school. He can't go back to the classroom. Home, what's he going to do? He probably was embarrassed to tell his father he needs a note from his mother. Now, he didn't think maybe he can get a note from his father. A child's a child. Anyway, he's hiding in a garbage can. I don't know how long he spent there. But the principal, the head of the yeshiva, was walking down the hall, and he hears some rustling going on in a garbage can. And he opens it up, and he sees a little boy hiding, trembling. Now, thank God, he took him out. He understood exactly what happened, took him back to the classroom, and he gave the teacher what he deserved. But I think to myself, and I've seen this, and again, we're not here to go into all the horrible stories, but imagine this boy was not taken care of. What would happen? The long-term impact, who knows? One event like that can change a person's life forever. The fear, nobody there to protect him, losing trust. And remember, children are simple. They don't understand these complicated matters where you'll start explaining misunderstandings. This is for adult machinations and stuff like that. So I have seen, sadly, the consequences when someone did not receive the kindness they deserved. And sometimes it's just one act. I will share this. I wasn't going to share, but I'll share it since we're family here and we're all a little vulnerable. So, no, I'm not going to confess that I was bullied or anything like that. I also didn't bully. That's also full disclosure. But I can't say I always protected the people that were bullied in my class. So I'm guilty a bit by standing by. But there was a boy in my class in 8th grade. Well, it was actually even for 5th grade is when we first, maybe even earlier. But I remember in 8th grade, we were very good friends. He had a challenging life. His father, he didn't know who his father was. His father had left, but he lived in Crown Heights. He was brilliant student, such a refined, edel neshama. I remember, right, so always marvel that he was such a sensitivity. But I knew he was very vulnerable and very fragile in many ways. Didn't really have anyone to protect him. And he had some quirky stuff, like we all have. And I remember then, you get unlucky and your friends start laughing at you. He had a mild stutter, and that became another cause for people to pick on him. And it wasn't blatant. It wasn't like, a full out bullying, but for a sensitive person, well, frankly, for anyone, was inappropriate. And I would watch it, but, as a kid, you don't really know what to do. It's like, I think back, maybe I should have gotten up and just told my friends, what are you doing? I probably did, but it doesn't really work when you're in that situation. When you're on the outside, you think you can just, not that simple, these matters. I'm not saying that as an excuse. Anyway, this young man, his story was not such a great happy ending. And it continued. I met him, we graduated high school, Lubavitch Yeshiva, in 1974. Then I met him 25 years later in Manhattan. I was walking and I saw him. And I right away recognized him. He was like a shell of the human being that I knew. I saw that he went through a lot. And I had heard that he didn't have a life, basically. And he was looking for, to numb his pain. So he got himself into all kinds of trouble. So I'm not saying it was only due to what happened in that classroom. But when I saw that, I remember I was so shaken by it. Because I was standing and talking. We went over to him in the street. He recognized me too, but he made believe like he didn't. But I went over to him, and I said, hi, But he wasn't even able to look at me. There was like that deep shame in his eyes, like he was no longer the person he once was. And we knew each other when we were like young, when we were like kids. And he couldn't even look at me in the eyes, I remember. And I was so like, Shalom said before, that obviously not the real him, but that was who he was at that moment. I decided to write an article about it, actually. I changed names to protect the innocent. And I had such a response from this article, it was around 11 years ago. And as a result of that, I began writing a whole series about molestation and other things. I'm not here to toot my horn, but I was probably one of the first that really began writing about it very openly, with all the critique that I got from everybody, especially rabbis, But I saw with my own eyes, and that was not the only time, the effect. So from the negative, you learn to the positive, the thing we don't always fully appreciate. That's why I find this to be, and Shalom said it very well. Is he still here, Shalom? Oh. It is Mashiach-dik, because these are not the things that we find people honor. That's why they're called unsung heroes. And I remember it was Sukkot, Tafshin Nun, would be the equivalent of 1989. So the Rebbe would speak every night Sukkot from the bima, from after davening, after Ma'ariv evening service, he would speak. And a little later years, in order for more people to hear, so the Rebbe moved to the center of the shul and stood there. I was privileged to be a chayzer, which was someone that repeated, remembered, and retained and recreated the Rebbe's words after Yom Tov or Shabbos. So we're standing very close to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's just standing there. Sukkot in 770, packed like sardines, wall to wall, maybe 10,000 people. I don't know how many people. It's after Ma'ariv. Everyone's waiting for the Rebbe to start speaking. Nothing. The Rebbe's quiet. No one knew why. It was like very odd. It was completely uncharacteristic. Then I hear the Rebbe whispers to the secretary. He says, Wo sind die Scharfkinder? Where are the Scharf children? So it was just a few weeks before that their young father, unfortunately, prematurely passed away, leaving a bunch of orphans. And the Rebbe is asking for these children. Now, where are you going to find children Sukkot night in 770? It's like a needle in a haystack. But the Rebbe would not begin speaking till they were found. So they began, we all know the miracles in 770. The next thing you know, the kids are being passed over everybody. And, the kids loved it like a ride, And they end up standing right near the Rebbe. And then the Rebbe begins speaking. And all without any fanfare. It was very nonchalant, but it was very clear. But something else that struck me. I was once on a television, a major television station interview. And they asked me, it was a live interview, so it was spontaneous. Tell us one thing that you remember that really makes the Rebbe stand out in your memory, in your history, in your experiences. There's so many things you can say. So I shared this story, and I said, but what happened afterwards was even more amazing. After that Sukkot, every Shabbos, you may not even know it. Most people, it's not even documented anywhere. Every Shabbos, they would stand, these three little boys, to the right of the Rebbe on the platform. The Rebbe would make Kiddush, and then he had a plate of cake. And he would, again, very nonchalantly, most people didn't even notice it after a while, it just became custom. He would take a few pieces of cake and stretch his hand out and pass it to them. And they would, of course, enjoy it for the next hour or two, eating this marble cake or whatever it was. And I stood quite close, and I always marveled. Here's the Rebbe, he's about to give these talks, mind-blowing ideas that can affect people's lives, and all the different, what a Rebbe delivers in his talks. And yet he has the presence of mind and spirit, and doesn't take himself so seriously, if you could put it that way. In other words, what the real greatness of a human being, just as it was with Avram Avinu, who's the really father of kindness. You want to have the personification of kindness, you go to Avram. The Sefer HaBoyer, one of the great classic Kabbalistic works, says that Chesed of Atzilus, which is the divine attribute of kindness, when Abraham walked this earth, said, what do you need me for anymore? We have Abraham on this world. He is the embodiment of kindness. So we have it in our genes, in our DNA, that the greatness of these people was that as brilliant as they were, and as all the qualities and virtues they had, they did not take themselves so seriously. They transcended their own brilliance. And you saw it in the acts, these simple acts that Avrami mentioned from the Maimer of the Rebbe, and so many other stories. This little act of passing that cake to a child. I remember that maybe more than I remember what the Rebbe said in the Farbrengens, because that's where you see the real difference between greatness and brilliance. Greatness is the humble acts, and while you're also so brilliant, you still don't forget. If a person is not that brilliant, you could say that's all they do is good acts of kindness. When you see things like this, they change your life. So as we come together this evening, to me, it all comes together, and hundreds of other such stories that I've seen, that I've heard. To me, they come alive, and it's like a tremendous, tribute that, I don't know, you were all blessed to come up with this idea to honor, with monetary, not just giving them a nice award, but I'm honoring them for simple acts that one person's life was changed in some way. I mean, if this can be publicized and reach to the larger world, I mean, what kind of ripple effect it could have? We always talk about goodness and kindness. This is it. I mean, the whole goal of this is, instead of fighting darkness and fighting the cruelty in this world and fighting all the injustices that we see, instead of focusing on that, let's just focus on honoring the simple act of kindness. And whether it's a teacher or fellow student. What was the third category? Okay, right. I just remember the amounts, 15,000, 5,500. I don't remember what it was for, I'm not qualified to be nominated because, like they say, anyone in the sweepstakes, you're disqualified if you're part of the family or the company. Anyway, the point being is that it is, I don't really have words. I'm here. I feel honored to be here. I think that we can bring this to every community in the world. And it's not that people are going to start becoming kinder because they want to get an award. It's that we're respecting and we're doing justice to what really deserves justice, those invisible, almost invisible acts that most people simply don't notice. And yes, exactly as was said by all the speakers before me, that's meant to be a call to each of us, that one act of kindness creates a ripple effect, what they call in science a butterfly effect, that literally changes the world forever. Whether you feel it or not is another story. But it's no doubt, I mean, look, the Rebbe would say very often that the thousands of years of Mesiras Nefesh, of sacrifice, even the harshest times, starting from Abraham, Avraham Avinu, through the generations, that the Jewish people never lost their kind side to them. And that ultimately refined the world, that today we live in a world where kindness and goodness and kindness is respected. Yes, it's still not like the Academy Awards, we have some way to go, but it's respected when you have an idea like a country like this, with all its flaws, but it honors charity. It will give you a tax deduction. I mean, that sounds funny, but it's not. But it wasn't the case. You go back to all the monarchs in history, no one rewarded charity. Greed was rewarded. And we live in a world where there is these principles, at least are beginning to be appreciated. So what I'd like to conclude and say is that I commend all those of you that come up with this idea. And most importantly, all the heroes and heroines, known or not known, and many that we have not yet discovered, that are changing people's lives. And that's what it comes down to. Every Pnimis Dika Jew, every Pnimis Dika person, when I say Pnimis, I mean someone who lives from within, inside out, not outside in, understands that this is what holds up the world. And even though money is worshipped and power and influence, at the end of the day, no human being can exist without love and without kindness. It's impossible. And a flower will wither without water. A human being will shrivel without love and kindness. And it's not always dramatic. As I said before, it can be small little things. It's the sacrifices that parents make, that teachers make. And to be able to celebrate, and people should know about this, to know that that's what we're celebrating. Not just how much you teach your students, but how much you love them and the kindness you show to them. You know, like they say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That is the foundation of it all. Or in the words of Rabbeinu Tam, words from the heart enter the heart. Words that come out of the mouth or from the brain go into one ear and out the other. Words from the heart enter the heart. Hearts understand each other. And that's the real education. Frankly, you can have all the academia. You don't have that, you have no life. You have that love, even if you're not that knowledgeable, you can make it. Because you have the inner confidence, the inner self-esteem, the inner fortitude to be able to navigate and deal with anything in life. So, my friends, I again commend you all of you that are here. We should get this video out to as many people as possible, just simply to show this is what we honor. I don't mean my talk necessarily, I mean the awards, just in case, make it clear. I got enough videos out there. But the point is to honor, and I saw the people getting up here. You know, you see they're all like unassuming. They don't even know what it means getting an award, which is so beautiful, you know. It's not like the what do we call it, the whole orchestrated Academy Awards and everything is choreographed from beginning to end. Here there's no choreography, it's just genuine love and kindness. And how can I say, this is what it's all about. This is what has shaped us. We all have our own little stories, hopefully only beautiful stories. And may we only elicit more kindness from ourselves and from everyone around us. And ended with say, when the Rebbe was asked the question, CNN asked the Rebbe, what's his statement to the world? He could have said 1,000 things, and he said that Mashiach is on his way, and we will speed up his coming through acts of goodness and kindness. That's what the Rebbe said. And the Rebbe, when he speaks, as I said, he could have said many different things. So that tells you all, tells it to you all. So we can bring all night about this, but we shall do Atkan HaKofa Aleph or the Kofa Zayin, and I feel again part of this is just beautiful, beautiful. Hashem should bless you, and Hashem bless each one of us as we come from Yutas Kislev, Chav Kislev, which is all about Avos Yisrael, the whole basis of Chassidus, loving another. If you don't love another, everything else is secondary. And when you do, everything else follows. So coming from this auspicious day, may we all internalize it and maximize and expand all our efforts in this realm. And as the Rebbe did say, goodness and kindness transforms the world from a hostile world, from a selfish, egocentric world into a giving world, that we become givers more than we are takers. And that is essentially what a Messianic age is all about. So it should be B'mheri Yameinu Mamish, before Hanukkah even, and all the darkness should be dispelled by this great light that is shining here. And Yocheved is remembered for something that is forever going to change people's lives, the acts of kindness that we do. Thank you so much.